All right, good morning, everybody. It's 11:30. We'll get started with our pre-commission agenda. I don't have a president's report today. Are there any housekeeping items or commission discussion of the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll just get right into the director's report.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioners. We have short agenda today, but some important topics to talk over through a work session. So we're thankful for you coming in for those conversations. Just as we start today, we wanted to pause and recognize International Women's Day, which was this last Sunday in Women's History Month. Here at the Highway District, we have 105 women who contribute in leadership and all positions. We are truly grateful for the contribution of all our team members, but we're grateful in particular as we celebrate this day for those who are for the females amongst us. Wanted to share with you, our refresh and reset effort that we went through at the beginning of this year was actually recently just highlighted on an article on good government files. Maybe not something you've heard of, but it's a post related to public agency communications, highlighting the quality of that event and the reason and how we are being proactive at addressing concerns and bringing people together. And just thought that that was such a great article, recognizing the great work of the team in bringing that event. And we'll talk actually a little later about something else that came out of that. We have now, in less than a year of ACHD Connect being open, have now closed our 5,000th ticket. We're excited. It's a exciting milestone, but really what we're most excited about is the ability to connect with our constituents. You see the number of profiles that have been created. Those are people who want to interact with us, want to be able to communicate back and forth. And that's a good number of citizens who are helping every day when identify potholes, identify issues, identify places where we need to work, right? We rely heavily on that. We can't be out everywhere all at once. And so having the citizenry join us in that conversation and join us in helping identify issues, we're so grateful for that. So you see the top 3 issues, signal timing, potholes, street sweeping. Those are all key areas that we have been really seeing over this last year, a great uptick in the amount we're able to get done too. So we're happy that as we hear about more, we're also able to get more done. You also can see how quickly our team takes this with acknowledging it in less than a day and having being able to close most within just over 2 days. So you see down at the bottom, those who have been really heavy hitters in this process, who answered the vast majority of these. I'm just grateful for the team who really cares and wants to make sure that those who we are here to serve have good information. We completed this last week the Locust Grove Fairview to Eustic Open House. This is a project that's a high priority for the city of Meridian. Looking at options along this corridor. This is an area where we have sidewalks and we have curbs and gutters, but only 3 lanes. It's planned for 5 lanes there. We had over 80 residents attend, very engaged in this topic. We've had over 750 site views to the project website and over 1,100 survey responses. Not sure how more people are responding than the people visiting the website, but that's pretty impressive. But grateful for how much people are engaging with us on this. We're getting good information to help inform what that design looks like long term. We've shared with you that we were going to be working with a class at Boise State on our Southeast Boise Neighborhood Plan update. Our team was actually there this last week helping teach a class on good public involvement practices and how to engage with the public. I love having gone through planning school, having there's only so much practical experience you can have, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to really partner with Boise State, but also to be engaging in training individuals to really handle things well as they go into their careers. Uh, we're working hard on the install of a pedestrian hybrid beacon at Ustick and Grenadier. This was a project coming out of our safety team. You can see our team installing as we speak. They're making good progress there, and we're excited for continuing to make it safer for individuals. This is an area that is a low stress bike route. It's an area that is a good connection in and around between Cloverdale and Ustick. So I mentioned our refresh and reset, and we had, as part of that, we did stop the bleed training. And Stancy here was one of the individuals who attended that training. Not long ago, he was out and he observed a man on the sidewalk on his hands and knees and recognized he was in distress. So, like a lot of our team members would do, he pulled over immediately. And he was joined by an individual who was an off-duty paramedic, and they were able to stop the bleed. The man was bleeding from his face, his nose and his face, and they were able to help apply care there. They contacted 911. They waited for them to get there and to take care of those things. This is a pretty common practice amongst our team, but we like to recognize those efforts when people go above and beyond to really just care about the community no matter what's going on. And Stancy is a good example of that in terms of how he responded, but really applying those skills that we try to make our team members aware of anyway, so that as they're out there, they can take action because they're present in the community. So just wanted to, we'll be officially recognizing him during an all staff, but grateful for Stancy and his efforts and wanted to just call that out and share that with you today. Also wanted to say thank you to some of our fleet team who was participating in the Skills USA training. This is in connection with CWI as well as the Dennis Technical Center and the Meridian Tech Center. That it's a program that comes together that allows individuals going through that tech training to really engage and see vehicles that they wouldn't normally have the opportunity to engage with. And so there's different tests that they go to. It's a competition. Joe has been a really heavily engaged. He works closely with them. But Skyla, who's one of our maintainers, actually came out of that program. Our mechanics, sorry, who came out of that program, and Kate actually joined us as an intern as a high school student, and then worked through college and now is a full-time employee with here at the high school or at ACHD. We're grateful for opportunities like this. We call it Build More because we're starting early to really show people the cool things that you get to do when you come to work at ACHD. You see here just the two work sessions, the bylaws as well as the bridge strategy kickoff. In 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about our policy updates and that be up for adoption. We're excited to be bringing that forward to you so we can implement those things. You also see some items coming up in April as we continue conversation on a few other topics. Want to call out the fact that we have an important day coming up on the 17th, not Pi Day, but we do have a piece of pie on there, right? Because we're going to celebrate St. Patrick's Day with pie, which Pi Day is actually March 14th, 3.14. You know, you got to, we love our math here, but we're grateful for the opportunity to bring the team together, and you're welcome to join us. We'll have more details for you on when that is. With that, commissioners, I'll stand for any questions.
Thanks, Director. Are there any questions? All
Thank you.
right. Don't see any questions. Appreciate the report, and we'll be at ease until noon. Meeting to order. Thanks to everybody joining us in person and online, and please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item is to adopt the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless the commissioner so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless noted. We only have one item on the consent agenda this week. Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the regular agenda. We've got one item, the vacation, public hearing and adoption of resolution number 2435A, portion of Table Rock Road. This is a public hearing, which I will go ahead and open and turn it over to Steve.
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioners, for the record, Steve Price, General Counsel. If you recall, over a year ago, we got an application to vacate East Table Rock Road. At the hearing about a year ago, there was direction from the commission to try and resolve some easement issues related to the vacation. We worked all summer, and in the fall, there was a decision to suspend the application, which we did. And then there was a request to activate the application, and we had a hearing set in January, which has been rescheduled, and that's what's the hearing before us today, is to hear the application. The parties have worked hard. Attached to the staff report is an easement form that most of the parties have agreed to. And also there's a letter asking for deferral. The reason for the request for deferral is stated in the letter. At the last minute, all of the potential easement holders had agreed to an easement form, but the Historical Society, through the Department of Lands, they were unaware of the easement, and they've asked for a month for us to address the Department of Lands concerns related to the vacation, but we got all the other parties agreed to, and that easement is attached to the staff report. So today, the applicant is requesting a deferral to April 8th. And with that, Commission, I'll stand for any questions.
Thanks, Steve. Are there any questions for Steve?
Madam President.
Commissioner McKinney.
So Steve, so the parties are asking for us to wait another month. And from my perspective, I don't see a problem with that, but is it simply the Historical Society that's the issue at this point, or are there still?
No, all of the easement that you have has been agreed by all the parties at one time, and the Historical Society, the state AG bought off on the easement form, but the Department of Lands hadn't seen it, and their attorneys wanted to take a peek at it. There's some state issues in the wording of the easement, and we most certainly want to take everybody's consideration in formulating that easement. So that's the reason for the request.
Okay, so other than the Department of Lands, we've got agreement.
We're done.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we've got a request to defer this item until April 8th. Is there a motion?
Yes, Madam President, I would move that we defer item number 1 on the regular agenda till April 8th.
Second.
All right, is there any other discussion?
Yeah,
Commissioner Nelson?
Yeah, I just want to, hopefully I'll be here on April 8th, but if I'm not, I just want to express my appreciation to the parties. This is a cut 10 times or a measure 10 times, cut once type of effort on
vacations are forever, so I just want to express my appreciation for I know the work that's gone into that. So,
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And yeah, people probably know, but I'll mention we've got Commissioner Pickering online with us. We'll move on to discussion items, public communications. Is there anybody in person or online who wish to speak to the commission? All right, seeing none, meeting is adjourned. Next up is the post-commission agenda. We're going to move into the commission boardroom next door and take those items up over there. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. All right, welcome back, everybody. We've got two work sessions. First up is our bridge strategy kickoff presentation by Diane.
Start out there.
Start good.
Okay. Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm excited to be back in front of you to talk more about the asset management strategy, which began back in 2016 with our strategic plan and continued last year with our pavement preservation strategy. Bridges and pavement are our two largest assets, so it's good that we are giving them both some extra attention and a deeper dive. I just want to say we landed on calling this bridge strategy because we thought bridge inspection, maintenance, repair, and replacement strategy was a bit long, but that does give you an idea of what all of this will encompass. So just want to shout out the team that's working on this. So it's the 4 managers in the projects division with Dennis Meredith, who's our bridge inspection coordinator and development services, as well as me.
Can you speak up a little bit
Okay.
more, because people are having a hard time hearing you.
Okay. In addition, I listed our maintenance staff here as well, but they haven't quite been involved in the conversation yet, but they will be. They'll play a role in this. So I want to start off with talking about what is a bridge, because it's not always what we call culverts and pipes. Bridges, for example, but also I want to point out at the beginning, this does not include stormwater pipes. This is just crossings of the right of way. And when we talk about a number, so less than 5 feet, 5 to 20, and greater than 20 feet, we're referring to the span or the diameter, and it's measured as a car would drive over, so perpendicular to the structure. For less than 5 feet category, these are all culverts or pipes, which are kind of interchangeable terms, which you'll hear me kind of go back and forth today. That is the top right photo there. So a small bridge, which is the photo on the left, could also be a pipe or culvert. So it could be a structure like shown there, or it could be a larger pipe. And typically bridges, big bridges greater than 20 feet are what you expect. And that's the bottom right picture there. But we still have, I just want to point out, two structures that are corrugated metal pipes that are greater than 20 feet. So we have one that's a 25-foot diameter pipe and one that is a 35-foot span arch pipe. So I just thought that was an interesting fact there.
Diane, where are those big corrugated pipes?
I thought you might ask. So the 25-foot diameter is on Alpine, just east of Garden Street. And that one is in our 5-year plan because its condition is on the lower end. The 35-foot span arch pipe is in a good condition, and it's on Bison Drive, which is all the way at the north end of 36th Street in the foothills.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk some numbers with you so you kind of understand the magnitude of the data here. In general, we have a very robust inspection process and database and with current historical information. Except for the less than 5-foot pipes, we have not, and it's pretty standard industry practice that we did not have those in our system inventory inspected. So we started doing that last year. Dennis Meredith and a team started with the 48-inch size last year and is finishing that up this year. So it's taking about 2 years just to inventory one size. And so we're going to go all the way down to 36, 24, and 12-inch. So this work can generally only be done between October and March when the irrigation is out, because a lot of these are irrigation structures. And we will start on the 36-inch pipe and culverts next year. So the 95 with the asterisk is what we have found to date of the 48-inch size. And when we complete the inventory of less than 5 feet, we expect it to be, the total will be the largest of all the categories. So it will exceed the 643 number we have for 5 to 20 feet. The 5 to 20 feet are fully inventoried and inspected. ACHD staff does that. And I want to talk a little bit about the rating for those two categories. We rate them on a scale from 0 to 9. With 0 being failing and 9 being brand new. And we highlight the number that's at a 4 or below, because that's when they're on our radar, we're watching them. We generally like to program them in the 5-year plan at the time they hit about a 4, because that would mean they would be getting repaired or replaced in the next 5 to 7 years. So you can see the numbers of those there. And over the last few years, on average, we've replaced about 12 pipes or bridges per year. Corrugated metal pipes, which is in this photo, our biggest issue. They decline rapidly. They can be fine on your inspection and take it on that exponential downhill curve of corrosion. And we've seen that increase over the last few years. They're no longer allowed, probably 20+ years now, to be installed in the right way. Our greater than 20 feet bridges are fully inventoried, but those are inspected by ITD. There's asterisks in that rating system because it's not straightforward. There's not just one number you can give it, or and they've recently changed the rating system for that. So there's many components of a bridge that get different ratings. So we've only had a few that would have been considered structurally deficient in the past, but even that terminology has changed. So there's just many factors that go into rating those bridges. We have a lot of these bridges in our 5-year plan that you're aware of and tracking, probably Eckert being one of them. Fairview Avenue Bridges, our Fed Aid program, and we've recently started, and you've approved both of the design contracts for Star and Lender over the river.
Diane, can I ask you one quick question? On those corrugated metal pipes, is it then, it's been standard practice that whenever we have one that has a problem, we just automatically replace it with a reinforced concrete, a precast concrete pipe? Is that what we do?
Yes, Commissioner, it could be plastic or it could be.
Oh, okay, so we might
Or
go plastic.
concrete.
Okay, all right.
And then we're just getting started on this strategy. So these goals may evolve as we move forward. But this is what the team is, when we've gotten together, kind of what we want to get out of this. I already mentioned the inventory inspection. Getting our arms around that less than 5 foot category is going to be important moving forward. We want to develop a menu of cost estimates, dollars per square feet for different types and sizes of pipe, different costs for maintenance and repairs, and will aid us as we develop a spreadsheet as a tool for quick estimates when we're programming projects in the 5-year horizon, and also, looking out in 20-year horizon, so we can kind of have an idea of the impacts. Exploring new technologies, just like anything else. Yes. Commissioner
Are we
Goldberg.
still using the bottom feeder for these other ones?
We are.
Awesome.
So new technologies such as CIPP, concrete in place. I don't know what it stands for. It lines the pipe and with little reduction in capacity, and it really can give you, it's not the end all be all solution, but it can give you 10+ years before you have to replace it, and it's a less expensive option. So we'll be exploring those types of technologies as well. Identifying funding sources is always important. With Fed Aid, it's limited, but we will look at any opportunities and grants to bring in additional funds. And then if there's there could be potential budget, policy, or staff recommendations, which all of those would be back to the commission. And next, as of right now, we're planning on coming back to the commission in June to share an update. I'm done.
Okay. Thanks, Diane.
Okay, now you need to. You need to use something.
Okay. All right. No, there's still an echo. Hello?
That's fine.
Check. Okay, that sounds like no echo. All right, thanks, Diane. Are there any questions for Diane? Go ahead, Commissioner Nelson.
An insufficient sized culvert that's causing, I know in Canyon County, I forget the water body, there was associated floodplain, and because the culvert was undersized, the floodplain map, people had to get flood insurance, and there was an effort of partnerships to try to get that replaced to reduce that. Is there any scenarios in Ada County that you're aware of?
I think there are, but I don't know them on
Okay.
off the top of my head. I know I have staff in the
Yeah.
audience.
Anyway. Five Mile Creek is where I was wondering, yeah. Okay, that might be a rating criterion, I don't know.
Yes, it could be. And I know we have a project in design at Pierce Park and Hill, and we're working on sizing that because there's a lot of water that comes down Pierce Park from the foothills, working with the floodplain administrator in that area, so.
Yeah. Excellent, thanks.
Madam President,
Any other questions?
Madam President,
All right, thanks, Diane. We appreciate the update and the overview. Next up, we've got a work session on the ACHD Advisory Committee bylaws revisions. Presentation by Justin. Oh, Commissioner Pickering, did you have a question?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Oh, sorry, hold on, just, we're having technical difficulties here.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Got you.
Oh, is that a yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. There we go. Hi, Ryan. Okay. Diane, I was wondering if you could speak to, I mentioned, you mentioned at the top of your presentation how, you've got a great system for evaluating these bridges. But I think we were all kind of shocked with the Eckerd Bridge and, ITD was responsible for evaluating that bridge and the lack of, like, I would say, like the lack of frequency of them and, inspecting that bridge. As you're going through this new methodology, are we increasing the frequency of inspection of some of these larger bridges as well?
Commissioner Pickering, I think that the Eckerd Bridge inspection was a success story in my mind, that it was being inspected and the decline happened very rapidly in a short amount of time between inspections. And it is, it's at least on the greater than 20, it is the last wood bridge that we have, so we don't have that issue with the wood declining very quickly. Even on the smaller bridges, we inspect, but even ITD's bridges, if there is an issue, it does get added into a more frequent inspection. Every 6 months instead of once a year.
Perfect. That helps. Thanks, Diane.
Are we gonna?
We
proceed
can talk
with
like
this?
this.
Okay.
Justin has a great voice.
Oh, no problem here.
Yeah.
Justin from the wall. Never been an issue. Well, Commissioners, for the record, Justin Lucas, the Chief of Operations and Infrastructure here at the Highway District. We're here to talk about your advisory committees that have been established over the years and some potential revisions to the bylaws that have been put in place various different times, modified over the years slightly, and there's been an effort by staff to kind of bring them into some level of uniformity so that all of the committees are operating relatively the same. There are some unique differences between the committees, but we thought this was a reasonable effort, so we'll just kind of jump right in. As always, just interrupt me if you have questions. I'll run through a little bit of a PowerPoint, but we also have the bylaws in front of us if you have specific questions. So today, just going over these updated bylaws and then taking your feedback before potential adoption in the future. Just to kind of put us a summary of where we are. Over the years, the commission has established 5 different advisory committee, citizen advisory committees. The ADA Advisory Committee primarily deals with issues related to the Americans with Disabilities Act. Bicycle Advisory Committee, somewhat self-explanatory there. Pedestrian Advisory Group, established after the Bicycle Advisory to more specifically deal with pedestrian issues. The Commercial Developers Advisory Committee, and I will note that we are proposing a name change as part of this bylaw update to Developers Advisory Committee, which is a specific committee that we interact with the development community, take their feedback on our process, procedures, impact fees, other things like that. And then the Capital Investment Citizens Advisory Committee. This is actually a statutorily required committee to maintain an impact fee program, which we certainly do here at the Highway District. So as I stated, the existing bylaws really were adopted at different times historically across the district. There is some inconsistency amongst all of the existing bylaws as we did our review. And we thought it would be important to have similar procedures and governance structures within the bylaws. And there are different appointment and attendance rules, which we thought it made some sense to bring those into uniformity. with a real overall goal of just consistency and clarity across all of our committees, but obviously preserving each committee's specific purpose. So we standardized the governance structure, clear membership and appointment procedures. I hope you saw that we are very, very clear in all of that and consistent across the different committees. Clarified officer roles and staff liaison responsibilities as appropriate. Essentially just bringing everything together and working together. This is easier for staff when we're going to the different committees, working with the different committees. It's rather than having some committees operate one structure and other committees operate in another structure. This is, we felt, a little easier to manage in general. So a couple of things I want to highlight. Advisory committees are established by the commission and they remain advisory only. Members of advisory committees typically are not elected officials, and some of the advisory committees even have restrictions against being an elected official. For example, the CICAC has specific state law associated with that. So these committees exist at your discretion, at your pleasure to help you and advise you. Sometimes there's a little bit of confusion there on, are they there to advise staff? No, actually, we're there to facilitate their existence, but they're really there to advise the commission, and then we would take direction from the commission. Ultimately, we work for you and the taxpayers. So commission would retain authority over appointments, bylaw amendments, which is one area where there was some discrepancy amongst the bylaws. Some of the bylaws, the committee had the ability to adjust its own bylaws, which after review and talking with legal, that didn't seem to make a lot of sense considering they are your committees and that they shouldn't be able to update their own bylaws without your approval. And then committee structure, bringing that into some level of uniformity. So a few notable clarifications. This idea of attendance over the years has been interesting as we've managed these committees. Sometimes you have a member who isn't actively participating. Depending on how the old bylaws were written, there was maybe that member shall be removed. That puts some pressure on the committee president to make some of those judgment calls. And through this modification across the committees, we're basically saying that attendance removal changes we change it from a shall to a may to allow for that administrative discretion in context specific decisions. The bylaws do clarify that the director has authority to remove members if they're not meeting those qualifications. I'm glad to take any feedback on that you may have. And then the director, though, to be clear, his authority is limited to administrative management of the membership, which can help address issues quickly and keep things moving. So that's one of the kind of more notable changes within the bylaws. Other than that, it was a lot of reorganization and kind of clarification, most of all, amongst the committees.
Justin,
Yes.
I might have a comment about this section. I think a little bit farther down, there's a part of it that says, 2 absences per year allows for emergencies, that kind of thing. So I think this going from shall to may to kind of allow for that discretion is good. I think adding director and commission president or with the consent of commission president would be good here, just to maintain that kind of
Perfect.
commission involvement.
Madam President?
Commissioner Pickering?
Yeah, thank you. Justin, are you also, I haven't obviously been a member of the PAG. I'm familiar with their bylaws, but wasn't there also inconsistencies with the amount of time people serve, like the term amount of time folks served on these different advisory groups? And if yes, is there any effort to make that more consistent across each of those advisory committees?
First off, Madam President, thanks for that comment. I think that's a pretty easy change when it comes to adding a little bit more language about how the director would consult with the commission president on those removals. I think that's really straightforward. I think that was the intent anyway, so we can just clarify it. When it comes to the different terms, yes, I think it's fair to say that the different committees have had some different term lengths and maybe restrictions on terms in the past. We have tried to make it more uniform, and I'm just gonna get to the section that talks about terms here. Let's see here. It's generally 2-year terms, that are staggered amongst the members, so there is overlap. I'm trying to see if we had, I think we've removed any essentially like term limits from the committee discussion. This has been one of those things that, you know, rather than, we certainly could do that. I think we've had some really engaged members of these committees and people that have, you know, dedicated a lot of time to this. And it seemed somewhat arbitrary to remove them after 4 years if there was no reason to remove them. So as of right now, the way the terms work in these committees is there would be no restriction on number of terms served, which ultimately that's at the commission's discretion. So
I think, Madam President, I think it's also fair to say that in some committees, it's difficult
Yeah.
to find members. Some committees, we have 40 people who want to participate and, you know, there's a lot of interest, but in some of our committees, having that kind of longer specialization and engagement is, I think, valuable to keep it that way.
I think one example of that, commissioners, is our Capital Investment Citizens Advisory Committee, where impact fees are nuanced and complicated. And having members of the citizens who serve on that committee over maybe a longer period of time, since we only update that plan every 4 years, has been helpful to the highway district to get people that are engaged, that know all of the nuances of those conversations, can help other members, you know, with some of the history. So that's an example of where a term limit could have maybe a detrimental impact on us if someone was removed just because of a term.
Commissioner McKinney?
Yeah, let me, I was kind of on that side of things in looking at these different committees and their bylaws, kind of stepping back a little. The intent has been consistency and so on. On the other hand, are there some functional differences between the committees that would suggest they ought to be handled a little differently? I think the CICIC is perhaps the one that stands out as different from the rest. Are there any differences in the way they operate that suggest they ought to have some different bylaws, at least in certain areas?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, I think yes. And there are some, I would say, distinctions between some of the committees in specific areas. I'll highlight with, for example, the Developers Advisory Committee, formerly known as, if the commission so approves it, the Commercial Developers Advisory Committee. If you'll notice, the conflict of interest section there is unique to that committee, considering that we're asking them to weigh in on issues associated with the highway district and their business is development. There could be some perception that there's an inherent conflict of interest. I think the language that we came up with kind of recognizes that. It still requires them to follow ethical guidelines and recuse themselves on matters of direct interest, but it allows them to weigh in on things like projects and other things where there may be an ancillary interest where they have land in a certain part of the county, and you could argue that the widening of that road impacts their, you know, but that's a less direct interest than something, you know, happening directly on their property. And so we did take that into account. I also think with our Capital Investment Citizens Advisory Committee, those are the bylaws that are probably the most unique amongst the group because of the statutory requirements. The setup is pretty different, and they're a lot more specific on what that committee is supposed to do from as it relates to our capital improvements plan and impact fees. Whereas the other committees, I think the feedback is more general guidance. So yeah, there is still, I think, a pretty significant amount of difference between the committee purposes.
Commissioner Nielsen?
Commissioner Nielsen has lots of comments, so you want me to go by committee with?
Yeah, I have them all.
everybody, or
We can walk
if
through them.
that's,
And I do
the
staff members.
overriding questions? I have this written down, so, is it worth talking about the meeting format? I know some committees are in person only, some are hybrid. Sometimes like the ADA is all Zoom. Is it worth talking about meeting format, or who decides the format? those committee meetings?
It's a good question, Commissioner
Yeah.
Nielsen and Madam President. With, with modern technology and with
Right.
COVID, there was quite a bit of a shift of what's been going on with the committees, and thanks for pointing that out. What we've done is we've essentially left that up to the committee members. We're not
Okay.
mandating in person or Zoom or hybrid or whatever. We're allowing for the committees to meet how they see fit.
Okay.
Sometimes there are committees that are meeting for a Zoom meeting, and they may say, hey, we're going to do an in-person meeting next time for specific reasons. If you're doing a workshop and reviewing a plan or something, it might be nice to be all together. So we've allowed a lot of flexibility there. I mean, if the commission wants to delve into that in the bylaws, I think we can. But I don't think there's any reason why you have to do that. I think allowing that flexibility is allowed.
It kind of related to that, there's kind of a standard paragraph in several of them that deal with like the attendees' expenses reasonable. And people ever chart, I could see where if it was an ADA where we would provide a reasonable accommodation and any expenses related to that. But I wasn't sure what that reasonable expenses would be outside of a formal accommodation for to have the members participate. And that's why I said the hybrid, are we excluding people if we don't provide a hybrid or Zoom option? So it's all kind of related to that. So just that the expenses part too, did we intend that, or is that in practice, or is that just for potential ADA accommodation, or is it not just regular people showing up to a meeting charging mileage? You know what I mean? So.
Madam President, Commissioner Nielsen, I think you've hit it on the head. We've typically in the past used that as it relates to ADA accommodation.
Yeah.
We are not currently like reimbursing standard mileage for someone
Yeah,
to
I
drive.
don't think so.
We're not reimbursing, like let's say there was some sort of food cost or something. We're
Right.
not reimbursing
Yeah.
that. Well, the reason we have allowed that and have kept that in the bylaws over time is it is possible there may be a member on any of these committees that could require a special accommodation. And we want to make sure it's clear that we would cover that if needed. I do remember when I've been in charge of a few of these committees over the years, specifically the ADA committee. I think we had one member who we would reimburse like a taxi service for them to come to the meeting. And so we've done that over
Yeah.
the years. And staff, you can weigh in here. I can't think of any recent reimbursements that we've done.
We had a signer one.
Oh, yeah, we have provided interpretation services. Yes, and so we would accommodate that request.
We actually paid for it, so we didn't reimburse,
Yeah, we just directly paid for that. But, so I think that's
Maybe the
why. it's
language
there.
could be tight and consistent,
have
so
to
it's
all
more
look at that.
focused on the, and if they can request that too, I guess.
Got it.
I don't know if it's that clear that the members can request that. And then the other kind of general thing I had is just the 5 committees, up to 13 people on a committee, each have their terms. Can we centralize, or at least for each of them has their own webpage, who they are, when their term is, more importantly, when their term is up, so that we can all track when opportunities are coming up for some potential turnover, especially as a commission, and let people know that, we have openings coming up, similar to what I think the state does and other, some of the larger cities have those opportunities listed on their website. So I find it difficult to know, how long has this person been on here, or, so that's just a general comment. I think we need to, after the bylaws are adopted, align the web pages to those. Because I think even the developers committee says they shall have 8 members. Whatever's on the website is inconsistent with the current bylaw. So just a little OCD here.
Madam President.
Yeah.
Great note.
Yeah,
And
just-
yes, so
yeah,
if we do all this and make these changes,
Yeah.
or even if we don't, we'll take a look at the website and get that
Yeah.
scrubbed and make sure it matches what we're doing,
Yeah.
for sure.
So, and I'll give you I think I like the changes to the Developers Advisory Committee. I'm not sure, and I think there's opportunities to get a better cross-section, like infill developers and things like that. So I don't know. I think we have to be a little proactive to fill that out. And I don't know if that's the staff liaison or who's responsible for trying to achieve that goal. So just a comment there to think about. And what I thought would disappear, but didn't, is that that committee, like the three others, is just advisory. Yet we cite the open meeting law. I didn't understand why we would regulate ourselves, over-regulate how we conduct that committee if it's not statutorily
Which
required.
one?
The Developers Advisory Committee. To me, why, I don't understand why it
The open meeting
references,
laws require advisory committees to comply with the open meeting.
then it should be in all of them.
Yeah, it should be.
Okay, that's just stood out because it was different than, it was same as CICC,
And
but
Commissioner Nelson,
yeah,
we've
yeah.
also run into some parliamentary issues, believe it or not.
Well,
And so.
yeah. I made a comment because some of the, I think the CICAC specifically calls out Robert's rules, but it's the only one. And that's probably fine, because I think the other committees, they're comfortable with how they operate,
Very.
and they can be, you know, that could be a too big of a change, you know, it can interfere with their open communication. So that was that. So I just want to be clear, so all of them are appointed by the president with the advice and consent. That's where we usually see that on the consent agenda. So when we see it on the consent agenda, it means at least the director and the commission president are kind of recommending that. Is that? Giving the extra votes. Yeah, travel. Almost done. I can't read this many pages on the screen. I have to print them out. You know, the major other thing is for the pedestrian advisory committee. Would it be beneficial? Oh, first of all, for bicycle advisory and pedestrian. I know on the website, on at least one of these, we have what district they're in. But are we trying to seek a geographical
Yes.
distribution? But I don't see that in the bylaws. So it's just something I'm not sure what
Madam
we
President,
want to do
Commissioner,
there. Yeah.
it's been a practice. It's not something that was necessarily directed. But in our conversations and when we brought forward members, there was a desire from the commission to have some level of geographic equity. It doesn't really work uniformly in all the committees, but we've always tried to do that from on those committees where it's more where people live.
One thing
not sure.
to kind of be aware of,
Yeah.
like in my district, for years, it was very, very difficult to get anybody but Wade McCaughlin, and even the least bit interested. And it's been fixed, but
Yeah.
it took a long time. So I wouldn't restrict it.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't prescribe it, but maybe as a goal statement, say strive to achieve geographic. That's all. Because that's what we do, just to reflect the current practice somehow in the purpose statement or form of committee.
Madam President, Commissioner, I think we make a stab at that in most of in kind of
Yeah.
the form of the committee where we talk
Right.
about residents, and the committee should represent as many jurisdictions as practical, encompass a
Yeah.
broad cross-section of cyclists. But I can look at that language.
Yeah.
If there's a way to add a little propose it.
And then the last thing on the pedestrian advisory group specifically, I know we do have a staff person from VRT. Do we want to say, is it important enough that we get a seat for VRT and maybe one or two for the school districts?
No,
Or just leave it?
I would say that would be just
Yeah.
making things more difficult for us.
How would that be more difficult?
Because all of a sudden, you got principals of schools, for instance, that, we were already aware of the needs of the school, as the school zone, things like that, but if we're gonna have, the larger these committees get, the more unwieldy they get. I've been at most of the meetings until this last year, for the 11 years I've been on the commission, and most of the members of the committees, except for the CICAC, know me really well. And when I don't attend, I call people and talk to them and find out what's going on and what their needs are. But I don't get anywhere near the kind of cooperation's the wrong word, but sense of that they are the least bit appreciative of the commission's involvement from other bureaucracies. So I'd rather not,
that's a problem, yeah.
I'd rather
Yeah.
not see them on the.
I just see them as customers that we interact with on a regular enough basis that their input would be desired. Yeah,
Sorry, which committee?
pedestrian advisory, just that one,
Okay. Yeah,
just that one. That's
to me, I feel
Yeah.
they're, citizen advisory committees, and so
Okay.
keeping that, but, maybe bringing in those perspectives based on whatever the discussions are
Okay.
to, as further discussion, but not have them as members on the citizen advisory committees is how I.
Yeah, thanks,
Okay.
Madam President. I
yeah,
think that
that's a good way.
pretty well describes
Yeah.
our practice where the official membership of the committee are citizens as described. But we have had multiple occasions where we've had like Miranda Carson from the Westfield
Yeah.
School District come in and present on a specific topic as a, staff member of the school district. And we have, with the school district, because they provide us with a formal request list,
Yeah.
and we have that
Right.
very strong relationship. I think there's good communication there. So I think in practice, we are achieving much of what.
It
you're
wouldn't
describing.
preclude their being able to be on the committee then.
I don't think so. I'd have to go back and look at all the
Yeah.
details. No, I don't think it would. We
Okay.
only, if they wanted to. And we've had regular attendance. I'm trying to think of by VRT
Yeah,
on the committee
yeah.
before, so no, it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Okay.
Madam President, Commissioner, we also,
Yeah.
I know of at least one teacher who's on the committee, that we've had others, I think, right,
Yeah.
administrators and things who've been on the committee as citizens, but I'm bringing in that perspective as well.
Okay. That's all I have.
Great. Can I ask one?
You had a couple of word changes, didn't you?
Oh, I'll get them.
Yeah.
They're not worth bringing up here.
Perfect.
Yeah. They're just like.
Commissioner McKinney.
Just one kind of a question. I noticed that all of these are called advisory committees except for the pedestrian advisory group.
Yeah.
Would it make sense to change their name to call them pedestrian advisory committee to be consistent with the others?
Madam President, there was sensitivity of calling it a pack.
Yep.
And so.
That's what, no, that's the truth. That's
They
what
chose to call it a group.
Okay, all right.
We didn't want an ACHD pack.
And on that one, that is absolutely what happened in the discussion. I remember it really well.
Yeah.
And the CICAC and the CDAC, we get those so confused. We wanted to try and create a little more separation there. So we didn't have a committee with such a similar acronym.
Yeah.
So that's why we kind of pushed for, one of the reasons why we're pushing for the change to just Developers Advisory Committee. It's simpler. It's not just commercial developers on the committee, it's residential, it's industrial. So we thought it was just a clarification there. So
Yeah.
that was our reasoning.
I just want to say it, I think consolidating and standardizing bylaws is almost as bad as the zoning ordinance. So thank you to everyone who worked on that.
Well, thank you, commissioners. And just want
Yeah.
to thank staff. There was a lot of staff work that's been done on
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
I just happened to be the voice today, but there's been a lot of work
Yeah.
behind the scenes, making this happen with Tom and his team.
Yeah.
And so it's been great.
It's overdue. Yeah.
Really, really appreciate all the work that has gone into this, and
I have one last question.
Commissioner
And
Goldberg.
that's of the staff members that sit in on these advisory committees. How have the advisory committees, what's their feelings about these?
The bylaw changes?
Yeah.
I think that staff was one of the main drivers behind asking for the consistency and did a lot of the additional changes.
But
I can provide a good example, President Gold.
Sure.
Justin brought this up earlier, but a great one was with attendance. And with some of the bylaws, we specifically said it was up to the chair, our volunteer chair, to make the phone call and let someone go off the committee. And so some of those changes that we're able to clean up, I think they're really appreciative of, because it provides a clear expectation of the roles and responsibilities of everyone who's volunteering on these committees up front. And then it's clear direction on whether it's on staff to make those calls. Is it on the chairs, the elected volunteers through those groups, or is it ultimately the commission or the director?
Good to know, because I've sensed all that when I've attended as well, so, yeah.
Commissioner Pickering, did you have any other questions or comments?
Nope, not right now.
Okay. All right, yeah, just really appreciate all the work and the feedback and discussion today, and thank you. All right, that concludes our meeting for